You said it yesterday, too.
Yeah.
Good evening. I am Monica Marquez, President of the League of Women Voters of Glendale Burbank. I would like to welcome you to our forum this evening. The League of Women Voters was organized 85 years ago when women first gained the right to vote. Its continuing purpose? To promote active, informed citizen participation at all levels of government. We do not endorse, oppose, or evaluate any political candidates or parties. Membership in the League is open to all citizens, men and women of voting age. Associate membership is open to all others. Our purpose this evening is to present the candidates of Glendale City Council to the voters. This forum is not a debate. It is an opportunity for the candidates to answer questions from the citizens about the important issues facing Glendale today. The League has been actively soliciting questions from the public and community service organizations. Questions have come to us through our League phone and website. In addition, during the first 2 rounds of questioning, we will be accepting written questions from the audience present at the forum. Those questions will be screened and sorted by League members to eliminate duplication and to ensure that no personal questions are asked. For that reason, not all the questions submitted by the audience may be asked. Our purpose is to cover as many issues as possible to provide the public with the most information. Before we begin, I would like to thank the members of the Glendale City Council, Mayor Dave Weaver, Ara Najarian, Rafi Manukian, Bob Yusefian, and Frank Quintero for permitting the League to use the City Council chambers and television facilities. I'd like to thank the City Clerk, Ardashis Kasakian, Public Information Officer Rich Wells, Tor Johansson, and Brian Halloran for their help in televising this forum. In addition, I'd like to acknowledge Charter Communications for their assistance in our televising this forum. Events such as this forum are made possible only with the dedication and hard work of League volunteers. I wish to publicly thank the League members who have made this forum happen. Timekeepers Arlene Ames and Peggy Stepp, question sorters Gwen Cochran and Dionysia Rodriguez, and audience question collectors Tom Carson and Audrine Galistian. And now I would like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Chris Carson of the League of Women Voters of Glendale Burbank.
Thank you. I'm the moderator, and this is tonight's forum for the April 3rd election for Glendale City Council. The forum is being televised live and will be repeated at subsequent times on your local cable channel through the facilities of Charter Cable. No reproduction or rebroadcast of this forum may be made without the written permission of the League of Women Voters and Charter Communications. We have invited the audience here tonight to submit written questions for the candidates. Please raise your hand if you have a question for the candidates, and the question sorters will collect them. Questions will be collected only during the opening statements and first 2 rounds of questions. Because part of the League's core mission is to promote civil discourse, we ask the audience to refrain from applause or other verbal comment during the forum, and please be certain to turn off pagers, cell phones, and all other electronic equipment that beeps, squeaks, or makes any other kind of noise. Now to begin with the rules. Each of the candidates will be allowed 2 minutes for an opening statement prior to the question period. They will get a 1-minute warning. Better show your sign here so they know. 30 seconds, and stop. Next, we will have the question period. There will be 8 rounds of questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question. The questions in rounds 1 through 4 have been submitted by the public. The League, which, as our president has told you, has been actively soliciting. The questions in rounds 5 through 7 will come from the audience. The final round belongs to the candidates. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to respond to a question asked of any other candidate or to address an issue not already covered. The candidates have been instructed not to make any personal attacks on any of the other candidates. And at the end of the question period, each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement. In this case, for the 1-minute statements, you'll get a 30-second warning and a stop sign. Here are the candidates in ballot order. Mr. Dave Weaver, Mr. John Draymond, Mr. Chahe Kuhergelian, Mr. Greg Krikorian, Mr. Rafi Manukian, Mr. Herbert Milano, Ms. Lenore Solis, and Mr. Vrej Agajanian. We will begin with the candidates' statements, opening statements in ballot order. Mr. Weaver, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. I always enjoy doing the League of Women Voters every year. It's one of my favorites. I love this 1 minute. Different questions for each of us. It really makes us stop and think. I've served 10 years on the council, and during that time, I've had a chance to vote on a number of issues that I think are good for the city and for the residents. I'd like to list some of them down. The Downtown Specific Plan, which has taken 10 years to get approved. Mobility Plan, which we just approved, and we'll start implementing a number of neighborhood parks that we've put in. We rezoned all of East Broadway, which is going to activate us from here clear down to Brand in terms of mixed-use housing, which will activate all of Broadway. The Town Center project, which is under construction and on schedule, and is going to be a great catalyst to this city. The Disney Imagineering project, which has finished their Phase 1, and Phase 2 and 3 are on the horizon to come in. KBC Channel 7. We've downzoned 14 residential neighborhoods. We purchased 597 acres of open space land, costing us over $56 million. Those were lands in Chevy Chase Canyon, Oakmont 5. We got the historic districting ordinance through finally, and we've made some refinements on the hillside ordinance with probably more to go. Things I would like to do when I'm re-elected is I would like to look at the FAR adjustment. I still don't think it's working right. It's creating mansionization. The view ordinance, downzoning multifamily zones, implementing the mobility plan, streamlining the permitting process, a one-stop shop, and a hotline for illegal permitting or for illegal construction that occurs in the weekends. So I'll wait for my questions down and respond at the end on anything else.
Mr. Draymond, your opening statement, please.
Good evening. For those of you who I have not yet had the opportunity to meet, my name is John Draymond. I'd like to thank you for supporting my campaign for City Council in 2005. With your help, development in our hillsides and canyons, our residential neighborhoods, and our open spaces all became central themes of my campaign. And with your help, I was able to take those issues to citywide forums, such as this one, to advocate on your behalf. And with your help, we were able to surprise the know-it-alls in local government when our campaign came within just a handful of votes of winning a seat on that council. The race was that close. Well, here we are in 2007, and many of you have encouraged me to run in this election cycle. And I'd like you to know that I'm honored by your faith in me, and I fully intend to continue to take this opportunity to advocate on your behalf. And as I campaign, I'm often asked, how will I govern in a manner that is different? And the answer is that I will uphold the contract that I make with you, the voter, because I recognize that the power and the trust and the political capital that you invest in me as your elected official flows from the ground up, from ordinary citizens who live in this city and work here and send their children to school in this city, and who reinvest their lives and their personal assets in their neighborhoods every day simply to build a better life for themselves and their families. To these people, I pledge my advocacy, not because it's the politically expedient thing to do during an election cycle, but because it is the fair and right and decent thing for all public servants to do. I thank you for this time this evening, and I look forward to your questions.
Mr. Kergalian, your opening statement, please.
Good evening. My name is Shalhay Karolian. Many of you may remember me from the days of the police department while I was in law enforcement, while I was involved with law enforcement as a community service officer, where my primary duties were to actively get involved in neighborhood watch groups and business watch groups. Some may also remember me from the days of my activity with the law enforcement, with the police department as the public information officer. I have actively been involved during those years with various organizations throughout the city of Glendale and the county, such as the Human Relations Coalition of the City of Glendale, the Pasadena Commission on the Status of Women, the National Conference for Community and Justice, the Glendale Chamber of Commerce, the Glendale City Employees Association, and last but not least, the American Red Cross, for which I was able to raise over $97,000 to assist the victims of Hurricane Katrina. Having a multilingual and multicultural background, I have deep appreciation for the cultural diversity that enriches the city of Glendale. My knowledge of 5 languages and my degrees in political science and public administration give me the tools to tackle the challenges our city faces. As a small business owner, I have always been a proponent and a strong supporter of small businesses. In the past, I have served as an agency representative for various chambers of commerce. As a council member, I will look for funds for the continuing growth of small businesses throughout the city of Glendale.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, your opening statement.
Thank you. I'd love to thank the League of Women Voters for giving us this opportunity to see us as candidates and give us the opportunity to express our views. Greg Krikorian has a consistent track record in our community. For nearly 2 decades, this community is built upon me as a foundation, as a father, a community leader in many ways. My father and I and my wife Christine have been active in the community since 1989. In 1989, we joined the Glendale Chamber of Commerce. Then I saw myself getting actively involved in the Kiwanis Club. And then as that year progressed, I found myself in the Vertigo Hills Boy Scout Council, involved in many organizations that strengthen you as a young man and taught me the roles of what our community gives back to. Since then, I have 5 children, and all my 5 children are involved in public schools. I had great opportunities in the community from being involved in AYSO soccer, Jewel City Little League, but these experiences brought me to leadership roles. Involved in Jewel City Little League, they moved me up to president to serve our children, serve our parks, and that experience is built upon the foundation of what I have today. I can't thank the Glendale community in many ways if it's built me not only as a father, as a business owner, and active involved in this community in many organizations, and now I want to give back. In 2001, I ran for Board of Education, and that has been the greatest experience, serving our children. The most precious gift that you could give is giving me that respect to serve our children. Now I ask you to let me serve our city in the next level, to serve our families in safety, serve our families for jobs, and serve our community as a whole. I'm excited about the next year and what Glendale brings, and I'm confident what I bring to the city. So when you look at this year and you see what each of us bring, I bring a passion and strength and love for the city. And Glendale has built me not only as a father, but as a leader in this community. I am Glendale, and it shows with my track record experience in the gamut of organizations I've been part of. And I'd like to thank you for this opportunity and your support.
Thank you. Mr. Manukian.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rafi Manukian, and I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum. I would like those attending today and those watching at home as well. A little bit about my background. I have a bachelor's in economics from Cal State Northridge, MBA from Cal State University Dominguez Hills. I'm a CPA by profession. I've served in the U.S. Air Force for 4 years, and I've served on the council for 8 years. I have the support of Congressman Adam Schiff, Assemblymember Paul Krikorian, Sheriff Lee Baca, Council Members Ara Najarian and Bob Yusefian, Glendale Police Officers Association, Glendale City Employees Association, Glendale Management Association, the LA County Democratic Party of San Fernando Valley, and the Glendale Young Democrats. Over the past 8 years, I've worked hard to address issues that are important to the community as a whole. Issues such as Oakmont 5, Airport, the skateboard park, speed bumps and neighborhood protection, the town center, downtown specific plan, mobility plan, and community outreach, to name a few. The policies of the council have changed and continue to change, starting with changing the focus from downtown business interests to neighborhoods and neighborhood business districts, acquiring open space, building parks in the most densely populated areas of Glendale, affordable rental and ownership housing, community outreach such as long-range financial planning efforts, and the long-range planning efforts. I have been one of the most accessible council members with my sidewalk office hours, where community members can meet with me without an appointment, and discuss issues that are important to them. We have many challenges in the future, such as the implementation of the mobility study recommendations, which will require vigilance and more input from the public and stakeholders. Issues such as open space and additional parks, as well as social issues such as senior services and affordable housing and new libraries. I ask for your support and your vote, and I look forward to this dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Milano.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Herbert Molano. Barazez im Anunas Herbert Molano A. Añón Hashimnika. Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Herbert Molano. These are the 4 languages that you will find on your ballot. And as such, we are a community of Native Americans, we are a community of Armenians, of Armenian descent, of Koreans, of Hispanics, and of people who have a long tradition in this United States. Today, you will hear many of the very same identical issues that you heard at this council chambers 2 years ago. In fact, I think that you will see and hear the same comments and the same questions that were presented 4 years ago and 4 years before that. And the only logical conclusion that you can make is that for the past 2 years, 4 years, and 4 years before that, the key issues of these communities have not been resolved. It is my passion to give to Glendale voters the government they deserve. I know it is within our means to improve our local government, and I am determined to see that your hopes can be carried through. We can have a city that grows with proper urban planning. We can have a city where traffic flows smoothly and steadily. We can achieve our goals for green, open parkland. We can protect our neighborhoods from reckless overbuilding. We can have a council whose chief aim is to serve the public. I know we can. For the past 20 years, I have been solving problems for large and small companies throughout the world. And for the past 5 years, I've spent hundreds and hundreds of meetings trying to understand why it is that this city council doesn't serve its public. Tonight you will decide what 2 candidates deserve your vote. It is my hope that you will find me worthy of your trust and passionate about creating the good government we all deserve. Thank you.
Ms. Solis.
Thank you for this opportunity to share our vision with the community. My name is Lenore Solis, and I believe that it is an absolute privilege to live in the city of Glendale. I believe that we who live here want a council that is representative of what we, the residents of the city, want. We have seen our council, unfortunately, ignore members of our community come before them and speak about what they want for their own neighborhoods. And we've seen our council ignore and act in a disrespectful manner when resident after resident, neighborhood after neighborhood, organization after organization has come before them to tell them exactly what vision they want for their neighborhoods. We've been talking about mansionization and hillside ordinances and traffic mitigation for how many council elections now? At least 4 that I can remember. We're still trying to revitalize our downtown area. We have a 16.5% vacancy rate in our commercial space. In order for us to have a vibrant community, it is essential that we have a vibrant downtown area. Our merchants need to be able to make the changes that need to be made in a quick and efficient manner. Our council needs to be responsive to the citizens of this community. My name is Lenore Solis, and I am a servant of this community. I have worked in various capacities. I have served you on the Water and Power Commission, on the Human Relations Coalition, on the Streetlight Committee, just to name a few. I am here to serve you, and I hope that you will remember my name, Lenore Solis, when you cast your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Agajanian.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for arranging this forum. My name is Verge Agajanian. I have lived in Glendale for 25 years. My wife and I are raising a son, 10, and a daughter, 7, here in Glendale. I'm certified engineer, host, and commentator of ABC TV Live with Verge Agajanian, a live program shown 6 times a week. I discuss in-depth city matters and issues. My program is live, and viewers may call in live with questions and concerns. In essence, my program is a public forum about city issues every night. I was recognized for my community work by the Glendale News Press by being named the 2nd most influential person in Glendale out of 103 individuals. I am alarmed by the manner in which the City Council deals with traffic and development issues. Many agree with me that the interests of the average citizen and the neighborhood are being trampled by special interest money. We can do better. We must do better. It begins with electing new members of the City Council who are dedicated to bringing transparency and openness to government. I want to make the tough decision in ways that are consistent with the best traditions of our precious democracy. Whether it's deciding on land use or parks or traffic or any other matter before the city, we need to begin with the spirit of inclusion and with respect for all citizens of our community. When decisions are made, everybody on both sides of an issue should feel they were listened to and treated with respect and dignity in the process. That is why we need transparency in our city government and new leadership in the council. Nobody will work harder or more effectively on the council for you than I will. I am running for city council to represent all of Glendale. I ask for your vote, Reja Gajanian. Even though my last name starts with the first letter of the alphabet, I am the last name of the list of candidates.
Thank you. We'll now begin the rounds of questions. The first question is from Mr. Weaver. Would you favor a view ordinance in Glendale? And would such an ordinance be enforceable?
Yes, I do favor a view ordinance. Would it be enforceable? It's how we construct it. That's where we lean on our staff to tell us, to make sure that when we approve any ordinance, that it is enforceable. If there's loopholes in it, and a lot of times there are loopholes in it, it just ends up causing the public to, or the applicant or whatever, to take us to court or to appeal or whatever. It's tough sometimes in constructing legislation that will work, absolutely. A view ordinance is not going to be easy because of the fact that everybody has a different opinion of what a view is. Is a view 10 miles away? Is a view your next door neighbor? And does it include vegetation or does it not? So exactly what it is, we don't know. But we're supposed to have a study session on Tuesday. It will now be on the 27th of March to find out what the public wants staff to look at.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Draymond. Impact fees may be charged to new developers in Glendale. What is your position on impact fees? Please explain your answer.
Well, I'm generally, philosophically opposed to impact fees, as I say, in general. However, I see that the city of Glendale is moving in that direction. The purpose of them is to help compensate the city for the added burden of added people using city services and so on. So if we're to have impact fees in the city of Glendale, I would like to see that they are phased in and not affect projects that are already in the pipeline. And I would also like to see that those funds are used for dedicated purposes, such as libraries, parks, and so on, the areas that they're meant to go to. Thank you.
The next question is from Mr. Kergalian. How would you resolve the Grandview Cemetery issue?
Well, definitely by engaging everyone who has been affected by it, who has not had the chance to have her word heard by during the process, and eventually, if it doesn't get solved by that, then obviously through the court procedures.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Krikorian. Would you support an ethics commission that would have oversight on allegations of ethics violations? Please explain your answer.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm fully committed to address the Ethics Commission because it keeps things on an open playing field. And how you do that is you develop a cross-section of the community so the voices are heard on this committee. And when we do that, it could be delivered in the right way, in a clean, efficient manner. And that's what's important. This Ethics Committee will be able to look at all issues across the board, from projects working in our city, ethics internally and ethics externally in our community. And it's important that we address that issue.
Thank you. Mr. Manukian, will you encourage regional transit planning that ties Glendale to Los Angeles, Bob Hope Airport, and Old Town Pasadena? How, if so?
Yes, thank you. Regional planning is very important, not just for transportation, but it's important for the whole region. We currently do already work with Burbank and Pasadena on a number of issues, such as utilities. we should work, and currently we have a member, Arun Najarian, who's on the MTA, and he is working on pushing through the connection between the Gold Line and the Red Line. I think that's very important to tie the Pasadena line to the San Fernando Valley. I think it's one of the most important things in terms of transportation, because I used to work in the Encino area, and there was no way for me to take any kind of public transportation to go from Glendale to the valley. So I think it's an important transportation issue, and I support it.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, what is your opinion of changing our municipal voting system to a primary runoff system similar to that of Burbank?
I think it is absolutely essential. One of the problems that we have with this particular process is that we don't have a chance to challenge the incumbents on the issues that are pertinent to the city. Look at our structure today. We barely have 1 minute to present our position, but no time to really engage the incumbents on their lack of effectiveness or the things that they have forgotten. We must change the process so that we can hear a true debate taking place. Thank you.
Ms. Solis, would you favor a mail-in ballot for municipal elections? Explain why or why not.
I know that we have a mail-in ballot next door in Burbank, and it has not increased the involvement of the community. And I actually do not favor that. I really enjoy going to vote. I think it's a wonderful experience. I think that, when my son, the first election he voted in was the Schwarzenegger recall, and it was a big deal, to go and to vote on such a momentous occasion and go out to breakfast. Even when he registered to vote, we went to the post office, filled it out, and made a deal of it. And I think that's part of what makes us Americans. That's part of our democratic process. And I think when you go to switch to a mail-in ballot, there's too much area for I don't want to say fraud, but maybe for some misrepresentation. Even with some absentee ballot issues, you see that happening. So I think I would not be in favor of a mail-in ballot.
Thank you. Mr. Agajanian, do you think the city treasurer should be appointed rather than elected? Would you explain your answer, please?
I think I would rather see being elected to have independence and work independently on the issues rather than being appointed. We have seen already people who have been appointed in this city, they became rubber stamp of city council members, such as the commissioners. And if they speak loudly or they object or they have independent ideas, they may be kicked out, as I have an example sitting next to me. So I would rather see it has been elected than appointed. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Draymond. How do you think the candidates could encourage more voter turnout?
I think that to take a leave off of Mr. Milano's comments earlier, I think if the forums for candidates were less constraining, it is very difficult to formulate a thought and explain it clearly in 60 seconds. And that was a one-part question. Now, we've all been treated to 2-, 3-, and 4-part questions. You only end up addressing a minute part of it. I think that that kind of process does not engage the voters, does not engage the public.
Thank you. Mr. Corkalian, how would you improve awareness of the services Glendale provides to its residents? For example, the bulky item pickup or street sweeping, that kind of thing.
Obviously, according to numbers, we have more than 60 languages spoken in this community. And in order to engage each and every community, each and every part of this city, each and every cultural and ethnic representation in this city, we need to reach out in languages that are spoken by the majorities of these communities. That would be one of the avenues. Another one would be different publications that are sent out by the city government, by different departments in the city, and the Channel 6 should also be used to its full capacity in order to educate the community in the languages that are spoken and understood by those various communities.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, if you were going to improve the safety and welfare of families in Glendale, what one thing would you suggest?
that's an important issue to all of us, having children, my own 5 children, and being responsible for the Board of Education, almost 30,000 children. It's always a constant challenge for all of us to address safety for our community. And one way of doing it is bringing and enhancing the city services with the police, but working with our community organizations, working with our schools and our colleges, and also neighborhood organizations, community education. And that's what I'm committed to doing, is reaching out and engaging the community to make everyone feel they're part of our safety. And when you look at America and how fast it's changing and how fast our lives are, safety is all of us together. And we look at our neighborhoods, which we're starting to lose because we are becoming divided as a community. And what I'm committed to in our campaign is bringing our community together and strengthening Glendale so we can be proud and have a safe community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manukian, should Glendale enact an ordinance limiting campaign contributions? Why or why not?
Yes, I believe campaign contribution limits they should be enacted. I've said on the dais that I would support it. It's important for the perception of undue influence from different organizations or different individuals, and I've requested that the city attorney come back to the city council with suggestions regarding campaign contribution limits.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, should the people of Glendale elect their city council representatives by district instead of at large, as we do now?
I firmly believe that we should, but I also believe that we need to have campaign contribution limits before we do council districts. Because if the undue influence that is already taking place, if councilmen can obtain $120,000, $200,000 to get elected to a part-time position that pays very little, it is more than just the appearance of impropriety. But once we get rid of that problem, I think that we should forcefully move forward towards having district representation, because Montrose and Southern Glendale don't have the appropriate representation, and we haven't had it for years, and it shows.
Ms. Solis, should city council members also be members of the Redevelopment Authority? If not, how should members of the Redevelopment Authority be selected?
Well, in a utopian situation, we would have an independent body of representatives of our community, stakeholders, who would select the individuals who would serve on the redevelopment committee and hopefully on all our boards and commissions, and they would sit for a set term and no council person could eject them at their will or at their pleasure. So if we had a situation where an independent body of stakeholders could be established to interview and select the members of the redevelopment agency and all of our boards and commissions, then I think that that would be the best thing for our community. It would be the best representation of the community as a whole. Right now, we've got the same 5 guys determining everything from the beginning to end, and that just has not worked out best for our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Mr. Agajanian, the city of Burbank is considering an ordinance banning smoking in public places outdoors. Do you think Glendale should also consider such an ordinance? Please explain why or why not.
Yes, I agree with it. We have to limit the smokers around our kids, which we have, and expand that. 25 feet is not enough. I mean, in Glendale, we have 25 feet around where the kids are playing. We have to expand it. We have to stop smoking in every public and private building. I agree to have an ordinance in that effect. And of course, I don't want to go to that extreme, which other cities they have, that saying anywhere in the city they should be stopped. But I think that's a good ordinance, and it will help the smokers also. So I am in favor of it.
Mr. Weaver, what do you believe are the real benefits or real costs of redevelopment to the taxpayers of Glendale?
Well, the real benefits, just go downtown and look. When the downtown redevelopment agency was created in the 70s, look at the renaissance that took place. Those that lived here back in the 40s and 50s, 60s like I did, know what that area looked like, where we now see headquarters of buildings like Nestle's and IHOP, whatever. where the Hilton Hotel sits, was run-down buildings. It's been a tremendous renaissance in that whole area. Here comes the town center. That couldn't have happened without the ability of the city to retain a portion of the tax revenue to reinvest in the community. And I think this council and many councils from 72 on have done a tremendous job in creating what is a great downtown, and we'll see the same thing occurring on the San Fernando corridor, where we've just rezoned the area for future mixed use.
Thank you. Mr. Kerkorian, what is the state of Glendale city finances? How would you maximize the use of revenues?
Glendale is one of the safest cities economically, considering the others in the state, and comparing it with the cities in the county. As far as maximizing it, I would think that impact fees, which will be limited and fair and balanced, could eventually help increase the balance and at the same time assist implementing projects, specifically projects that are addressed to the youth issues and to senior programs.
Thank you. Mr. Kerkorian, do you believe there should be term limits for city boards and commissions and also for city council members?
I think you skipped a candidate.
I did?
Mr. Draymond?
No, you're moving aside.
Moving
Okay,
along.
I'm sorry. My apologies.
Mr. Kerkorian, I'll repeat the question for you.
Reset the time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, ready? Okay, Mr. Kerkorian, do you believe there should be term limits for city boards and commissions and also for city council members? Why or why not?
That's an important issue to all of us in this community. In the way that I'm in favor of some form of it, because you have so many good volunteers in our community. And when you look at our community across the board, we're over 200,000 in population. And as we have new volunteers and new people adding to our community and service groups serving our community, you have that. But what's important is you do need some consistency with leadership. The biggest focus here is it's up to the voters. The voters decide. I am one vote. As city council, we have 5 of us. And when you operate as a team, you could achieve goals we need to do. So when you leave it purely in the sense of the voters to vote in and vote out, and they set the tone. And this helps deliver our term limits because they set the term limits. Because we as voters have to be committed to that. And that's why I'm not fully in favor of term limits, because you leave it up to the voters.
Thank you. Mr. Manoukian, how do you propose to mitigate parking problems in both residential and business areas?
Parking problems in adjacent areas to commercial districts start with commercial customers and employees parking in the residential areas. In the downtown area, we've done the mobility study, and we will be re-engineering the fees for and the penalties for parking in the residential areas. We will be encouraging individuals to park more in the parking structures and employees to park in the parking structures that are provided for in the buildings, and initiate permit parking as well in the residential areas. Those are important issues. I think with the mobility study, we'll address a number of those issues in terms of parking, and I will support those recommendations.
Mr. Milano, what can the city do to substantially increase the number of affordable housing units being built in Glendale?
Thank you. Right now, we have over 1,200 housing units being supported through Section 8. It brings in several $1 million of income to the city. But in order to substantially make the increases, we need to be able to create policies that will create it for tens of thousands of people. We have over 10,000 people in dire need of affordable housing today. And I believe that condominium converting apartment units and selling them to its own tenants, is probably one of the things that have not been explored fully by the city. I think we have a fantastic opportunity to be able to sell these units somewhere between what an apartment building would sell for and what the condominiums would sell for, and give tenants instant equity. I think it will be a fantastic thing for our city to bring our ownership to close to 50-50, because right now it's 62% tenant and 38% owner.
Thank you. Ms. Solis, what is your opinion on the current structure of public communications at city council meetings?
I'm not happy with the way it's structured. I understand that you have to limit the public when they come up and speak before you, but what is unfortunate is that you'll have an issue and you'll have individuals come up and speak for 3 to 5 minutes, and then they'll sit down, and then the council will proceed to go on for 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes. And the public doesn't have a chance to come back up because a lot of what is discussed, the public is sitting there anxiously wishing they could come up and address because maybe somebody misunderstood or somebody is misspeaking or somebody is deliberately stating something that is incorrect, and the public sits there and is unable to come up and correct or clarify or ask another question. That is unfortunate. Now, I know that if we were to allow that, you would be here every day until 1 o'clock in the morning. I understand that. But when there's a pertinent, very important issue,
Yeah.
I think we should allow that.
Mr. Agajanian, what are the most useful and practical things the city can do to support and foster small business in Glendale?
What they can do is to help the small businesses is to offer a loan with no interest or very low interest. Those are the backbone of the businesses, and the community needs those small businesses, especially Glendale, where we have lots of newcomers, and basically they are opening small businesses. Beside that, I guess what we have to do, which is more important, first time, when they want to open a business, we have to lend them some money. Because those who are opening new businesses, whatever they have saved, they have to put in the business, and after a while, they don't have the foundation and the saving enough to continue the business. So after a while, like every other business, 80% of the businesses, first-time business openers, they're unsuccessful, so we have to help them to continue on. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver, please give your views on the intrusion of multiple family housing in R1 zones.
Too much. That's why I've talked about having studied it and seeing what's happening. If you drive down a residential area and you see single-family homes and one multifamily house on that street, that indicates it's zone multifamily, and every single-family house is going to go. And it's going to be replaced by apartment buildings one day, bringing more traffic and more people and more congestion in. If you drive down, you see a block where it's all multifamily and in one residential, forget it, that block's gone. But I think the city's got to go back and block by block, look at those areas where you see very few multifamily housing and rezone it downwards to single family. That makes the apartment non-conforming. But if we want to make sure that the traffic does not get any worse, then we have to do something about reducing the number of units that can go into a given area. So I'm strongly in favor of looking at that in the coming years.
Thank you. Mr. Draymond, what is your position on mixed-use developments within the city?
Within reasonable use, I'm in favor of them for a number of reasons. I think that development in the residential neighborhoods is a problem, but where I would like to see development is in our downtown core. I'd like to get some of the tens of thousands of people who are currently a part of our population only during rush hour traffic out of their cars. I'd like to see that we build for them the desirable housing inventory that they want so that they will become a part of our population. And by living in the downtown core, they will demand the entertainment venues, the cultural venues, the retail venues, and so forth that will help make Glendale a first-rate, forward-looking city for the next century.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, many people are saddened by the loss of a major theater group which will relocate in Pasadena. What suggestions do you have for attracting and keeping professional theater and art groups in Glendale?
That's a great question because it's important that we rejuvenate Glendale, bring back the pride to Glendale. Glendale's lost its zest. in many ways, and all of us residents admit to it, we find ourselves going to Pasadena or Burbank or downtown LA or West Hollywood or going to different locations throughout Southern California to get enjoyment in theater, the arts, or even dining. And what I'm committed to doing is studying the region and studying the West Coast, looking at what Seattle's doing. Seattle, Washington set up a whole new branding theme to bring the arts and theater back to town. We developed a team approach, and we work with our theater in our schools, in our colleges, that's there to grasp this issue together. And this is one component of it, because when we strengthen the theater, it brings residents to downtown. It brings residents to enjoy life here locally. And that's what's important about, and that's what I'm committed to doing. Thank you.
Mr. Manoukian, if reelected, what 2 goals would you like to accomplish as a city council member, and why?
Well, one of the first goals I would like to accomplish is to initiate the beeline that goes south from Broadway on Glendale to the San Fernando Road, because that's an important area, and a number of residents in that area and younger individuals who go to Glendale Community College are not able to go up and use public transportation to go up to the community college. That's one, and there's a number of affordable housing projects that are in the way. I would like to see them completed.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, if elected, what regional board would you like to sit on and work for Glendale?
It is very likely that I would be very pleased to be part of the Airport Commission, because I believe that it is the airport that is the engine that drives the rest of the business community in a very significant fashion. Most of the high-paying jobs that we need are jobs that would require a significant amount of travel. You can take a look at Burbank's entertainment industry. You can take a look at Disney, for example. Any business that is doing international work and is expanding needs an effective airport, and I believe that we are lucky that we have owned this part of the airport for so long. We need to make that particular hub an essential hub for our city's growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Solis, currently Glendale has an at-large city council. Do you favor retaining that or going to districts?
I think when you have districts, the areas that are underrepresented in terms of organized groups will be better represented. You can make your city councilman more accountable, or councilwoman more accountable. I think what we see now is when you find areas that are higher economic areas, they have organized groups like homeowners associations, improvement areas, business improvement districts, and they are organized and they're able to bring a greater voice on regarding what they need to the city. When you get to the southern area of our city, where they're not as organized in terms of homeowners associations, they are not going to get as much as what the other more organized areas get. When you have districts, then you have a representative who is accountable to that particular area. And unfortunately, we've seen that we have neglected some areas of our city. So because of that, because of the accountability, I think it would be in the best interest of the city as a whole if we did have districts, because each council person would have to be accountable to their constituents in their district.
Thank you. Mr. Agajanian, would you propose to make further changes to the current existing hillside zoning ordinances? Please explain your answer.
I would like to implement the ordinance. We have enough ordinances there, but it's not implemented. For 12 years this is going on, and the council trying to push the decision off. And also I would like to add the view ordinance. I want to add to that, so we have to work on view ordinance and to keep the ordinance we have and implement it. Right now, at this moment, I think we do not need new ordinances just to implement what we have on the record. We have seen people that are coming from different areas of the city to talk about those issues, and they have been ignored. So I think let's keep and implement what we have on the record.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver, what role do you believe city government should be playing in the oversight of the Americana project?
Well, not much anymore, other than permitting, reviewing the construction drawings, the inspection to see it's built. all the documents necessary for the project to proceed have been completed and signed off on. All the financing has been put in line. We now have a project that is on schedule for opening in the spring 2008. So we inspect it. We review the superstructure that is going in. I don't know if that's been approved yet, but I think it has. So our role right now is limited. There will be street improvements put in, and again, we will be out there. I think Rick Russo's people will put the street improvements in according to our specifications and our review and inspections.
Thank you. Mr. Draymond, citizens have expressed concern recently about some of the issues surrounding the current city council meeting format. What changes, if any, would you support in the way the meetings are structured?
You could elect me. Not to be glib, but I think that part of what I pick up from the public is that they are interested in a change in the manner in which our elected officials represent the people that they're meant to serve. And what I would encourage of our elected officials is to understand that their shoulders are for more than holding up their suspenders. They're supposed to be broad enough to be able to allow the public to come there and speak their mind without being subject to a hectoring lecture or being belittled. Part of our job as elected officials is also to be able to listen and to take it, even when sometimes it's not pleasant. That would be the first-rate advice I'd pass on.
Thank you. Mr. Kerkalian, how much time would you devote to work as a city council member?
As much time as it takes, because I'm one person who listens to the community and listens seriously and honestly. Based on that, then I take my steps, I take my stand, I take a position, and my position will be very well known to the public, whether it is a yes, if I agree with a recommendation, with people's opinions, with people's recommendations, or if it's a no. So I do have all the time that I can dedicate, and I will do that as long as it takes.
Thank you. Mr. Manoukian,
Yes.
if citizens and council members support additional purchase of open hillside land, how do you propose to fund the purchase?
I would propose to fund the purchase by going and lobbying state representatives, the state of California, the governor, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and if I would prefer not to have the city come up with funds, because we are running low on funds for things like libraries. We almost lost the Adams Square Library that we're in the process of building because of $300,000, and we've spent over $30 million for open space already. I would like to see that some of these funds come from state and Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. If the city has to come up with some funds to supplement some of these purchases, I would have to see the overall impact to the budget and make a decision based on that.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, how should Glendale face financial crises due to the reduction of state and federal funds?
I think that we have a significant opportunity to look very hard today at the way we budget the increases in the pay for middle management, for example, or at the way in which we start certain projects that have significant cost overruns. Whenever we think about the budget of a city, and I have spent probably more times at city budget sessions than Mr. Najarian, the councilman, and I can tell you that this city is not tightening right now its belt as the way it should. We spend a significant amount of money that we shouldn't have to spend. And I'll give you an example. We had a cost overrun of $17 million alone on the construction of the police building, and no one was held accountable. When we began to have the city management accountable to the residents of Glendale and accountable to a true budget, I think we'll have enough savings and enough reserves to be able to withstand any bad tempest. Thank you.
Ms. Solis, what specific recommendations do you have to ease traffic congestion in Glendale?
That's a tough one. You know, we just paid thousands and thousands of dollars to have an expert write a study for us. And, you know, we can spend years writing studies and we can read all about it, but unless we implement something, unless we implement signal changes, unless we implement, you know, larger pockets for left and right turns, unless we implement tow-away lanes during high traffic hours near the entrances and exits of our freeways. I mean, if anybody tries to get out of the WAMU building on Brand around, you know, high traffic, 5 o'clock, forget it. I mean, it's just, you got to get on the freeway. You can't get over to go north on Brand. It's impossible. It's very frustrating. I mean, if we could just implement all the studies that we've done, let's implement, let's get it done, let's do something. Instead of reading all about it, let's do it.
Thank you. Mr. Agajanian, what ideas do you have on further integration of minority residents into the community life of Glendale?
My TV program, which I have 6 days a week, and I bring the issues related to the city every night. It's a live TV program, and they can call. It's a call-in show. They call and ask questions. So I study every issue which is coming up, and I have to explain, and I have to be prepared for the questions. So I think similar programs which I have, that I help to integrate people in the system. I mean, recently, I give you an example, is when the city was offering in affordable rental units on corner of Brand and San Fernando Road, I got on my program and I brought to people's attention. There was a crime and hit-and-run accident. A representative of a police department came on my program to come to the people and ask for help in that respect. So I guess similar arrangements will...
Thank you. Mr. Weaver, what are the greatest infrastructure needs facing Glendale, and what should be done to accomplish the task?
Well, we have a backlog of over $100 million in capital improvements. It's always said that we don't put enough money into streets. We increased the budget by a few $1 million to do additional street work, ADA ramping. A lot of that is going on. We got behind on the maintenance on our water and power, especially on our power system. We've now put in a program building up reserves and implementing the improvements in those areas. Water line, if you go up in Glen Oaks today, anybody's wondering, a line went out, probably an old line built back in the 30s and 40s. We just not, as a city, in the past, did not look at the infrastructure needs, maintenance required, and now we're having to pay the penalty by trying to catch up from the past. I think we do a pretty good job, but we could always spend more if there were more money's available on a yearly basis.
Thank you. Mr. Draymond, how should the city of Glendale be preparing to handle future population growth in Glendale?
Ooh, let me dovetail onto Mr. Weaver's answer. For one thing, we should be looking at our increased growth and planning for it in terms of our infrastructure. One of the reasons we fell behind in looking at our infrastructure is because we have not adequately paid attention to providing the infrastructure we need for our anticipated growth. So that is one way. We also saw an enormous population explosion in this city as a result of which also put great burdens on our infrastructure. And we basically gave away a section of our city to development without any thought to what that would do to infrastructure such as roads, parking, schools, park space, etc. And we're paying for all of that now.
Thank you. Mr. Kergalian, what ideas do you have for improving business conditions on Brand Boulevard?
Listening to the merchants, paying attention to their needs, conducting a survey, and advertising them. You know, we have several publications produced and distributed by different departments in the city. We have Channel 6 available 24/7. Why not put them into good use? Why not advertise those businesses? Another one, why not allocate a specific week or a month for, let's say, brand merchants and encourage, first off, city employees to do their shoppings that month from the merchants and brand by advertising in the papers, on TV, encouraging the community to do the same, and then moving that atmosphere to a different neighborhood by having cultural fairs on Brand Boulevard instead of doing them in Verdugo Park, where a lot of people will be attracted from out of town. And thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, do you support more high-rise business and residential buildings in our downtown area? If so, be specific as to location and its impact on traffic.
Again, that's a great question that we have to address. First of all, we have a 16% vacancy rate in Glendale. That equates to almost 3,000 jobs that have left Glendale in the last 10 years, who could be shopping, dining, and enjoying Glendale and supporting our businesses, which that would in turn support more revenue for our police and fire, our parks, our schools, and many other ways. So supporting new high-rises when we have space that's presently vacant, that's the question we have to address. So we need to have a plan for this. And we develop a plan, we earmark it, and we work together on that issue. And that's how I'll address it, is that one component. And the second component is regarding the downtown strategic plan. There's opportunities that we can strengthen the downtown with mixed-use residential that would create opportunities for people to live and work in our community. That's one of our goals. With the rising gas cost that's affecting us and the rising inflation that's affecting us, there's ways that we can strengthen that.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, do you feel Glendale needs to attract more upscale restaurants? If so, how would you accomplish this?
Well, I think that we are very well on our way with the development of the Americana. I believe that when you have competent developers who are very much interested in their self-economic interest, they're going to do the utmost. And I believe that we have a gentleman who is very much capable of creating that type of environment for us with the Americana. But what we need to do is to plan carefully how brand itself is going to be developed. We have the model of a successful street. That's Colorado Street in Pasadena. These people absolutely know how to plan a community of businesses so that they all integrate and serve each other. It is significantly different with the way we do it in Glendale. We do not plan our economic processes for aligning all of these businesses together. So I think that we have a lot of improvement that we can make to make Brand Boulevard a truly unique place to be.
Thank you. Ms. Solis, do you support the city underwriting some of the costs of bringing in new businesses? If so, please give examples.
Well, there's Zany Brainy. I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars we invested in that business to come to Brand, and they didn't make it. And now we have Salvation Army at a key location on our main boulevard. And some people may think that's just fine. But that's probably not going to attract like an Ann Taylor store right next door. So, I'm all for doing whatever is necessary. Today they had an event at the Alex Invest in Glendale, which was meant to attract businesses to Glendale, and I think that's excellent. But in terms of spending our money, our public dollars to attract a business here, I'm not so sure I'd be in favor of that because of the examples of what we've already seen have not been good for our city. We've essentially wasted our money.
Thank you. Mr. Agajanian, how would you work to increase the allocation of Section 8 federal housing subsidies for Glendale?
I guess what we can do is to be very careful. Just 2 days ago, LA County announced that the allocation of Section 8, they lost 2,500 of those vouchers because the LA County administration did not work properly. They have 83% they turned to the public, but as a result, they're going to get next year because they're going to go based on 2006. They had 21,000 vouchers, and now it's 17,500. Glendale so far has done a good job of keeping the voucher available to the public. But I guess we have to go to our congressman and other officials to allocate more Section 8 vouchers for Glendale through HUD, where we have 9,800 waiting list, and the waiting list is closed.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver, how active a role should the City Council play in encouraging the arts in Glendale?
Well, we should play the role that we're capable of doing from a financial standpoint. In polling that we've done in the city, the arts itself is of a low priority compared to other needs in the city. That's the public of Glendale talking. Arts are not cheap. Arts require a lot of subsidy and a lot of upkeep. They're great. I'm an artist. I believe in the arts. I like music, whatever. But when you start to create a district, there's a lot of financial obligations there. Who's picking up the tab? The private sector? It's very difficult to work it out where the city and the resources of the city pay for all this. We subsidize the Alex over $400,000 a year. And you take places like Cerritos and the others, those performing arts centers subsidize $2 to $3 million a year. So it's easy to say we want an arts district, an arts center, but it's very expensive to operate and maintain.
Thank you. Mr. Draymond, please explain your view on Glendale's long-range planning. What are its strengths and weaknesses?
In 60 seconds, huh? It's a long-range plan in 60 seconds. Let me shorten that down to the specific end of it, because that's what they've been working on recently. I do support the specific plan. I have questions about the occupancy issues and the height issues, but overall, I think that is good. I like the mobility study that they are working on now. And one of the reasons I mention that is because 2 years ago, when we sat in this very chamber, one of the candidates kept saying, we need to master plan transit and mobility. I'm glad to see that someone was listening. And even though that candidate is not running this time, hopefully he's listening on the Internet, and he will, or on cable, and he will be happy to know that we are finally master planning our traffic.
Thank you. Mr. Kergalian, please explain how you would propose to finance any of the projects you support.
As I said earlier, by supporting small businesses, we will get more revenue from their sales. My passion is to establish a youth center, something that is desperately needed in this community. Aside from other projects, I would like to focus on youth issues. We have never addressed that issue. We have neglected our youth. Most of them who do not continue with their education going to colleges are left alone with no direction at all. We have to have, first of all, a youth center, which not only will give them direction in life, but also it will bridge between them and different cultures. By adding impact fees, as I said earlier, but limited and fair and balanced impact fees, we will have much more revenues than we have today, and we can allocate that money, the difference on the balance, we can allocate that and dedicate it.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, what is your view on the formation of historic districts in Glendale?
Growing up in Connecticut, in a state that was over 300-plus years when it first formed, I saw historical homes that were 200-300 years in age, and to see Glendale and the beautiful neighborhoods we have, it's an important issue to all of us. Living in Northwest Glendale and seeing the community throughout, east to west, this is a step that would beautify and strengthen our community. I'm committed to strengthen historical integrity of our community. We look at the United States as a whole. We're 230-plus years, and it's important that we protect the integrity and architecture of our homes. My sister's home in the Vertigo Woodlands is a case in point. When she developed her home, she fit the integrity of the neighborhood. What's happening now is people are abusing our rules and our ordinances, and are hurting our neighborhoods. I'm committed, when I'm on City Council, to protect our neighborhoods and protect the integrity of our community that's being damaged. Thank you.
Mr. Manukian, what are your plans for providing more recreation opportunities for teens, especially during the afternoon and evening hours?
Thank you. We have a number of programs to provide after-school activities. We need to support those programs, such as the Daftia Mariamian Education Foundation, where over 1,000 kids attend to learn different languages. They learn chess, art, and other programs as well. The City of Glendale also has other programs through Parks and Recreation where youth can participate in these programs, after-school programs. My children have participated at certain times as well. We also support the Glendale Youth Alliance and the providing of jobs, summer jobs for the youth. I think as a city council, we need to continue supporting those programs. They're important. And just for the record, I voted for the historic districting, and I support it. Thank you.
Ms. Solis, what is the City of Glendale doing to combat homelessness? Is it doing enough to take care of the problem?
Well, we do have a homeless shelter at the Armory. But is our society in general doing enough to fight homelessness? And there's different types of homelessness. There are people that are displaced because of economic reasons. There are people that have drug problems or have emotional and mental issues, and unfortunately are not the type of people that want to be off the street. Because I know that in the Skid Row area of Los Angeles, there are hundreds of programs to address the homeless issue. And I think Glendale, through the implementation, they have all their resources at one facility trying to address, provide resources for the homeless people. But if you don't go there and if you don't want to partake of what's available, then there's not much that we can do as a city other than to provide shelter for you when it's cold. Thank you.
Mr. Agajanian, how can the safety of grade-level railroad crossings be improved?
That's a great question. I guess I would look at Flower Street. One of those issues which the public have or the residents have by opening a railroad crossing, and they think that will be very dangerous for the city when you open Flower Street to the San Fernando Road. So I guess with limiting those crossings and having more protection, such as recently which police was doing around all the crossings and ticketing those, whether they don't respect the laws in place or they were educating. I think the warning will work also. Education should be part of it. Through the police department and through programs such as my TV program and others like Channel 6, Glendale TV program. I think education should be part of that to make it safer.
Mr. Weaver, what proposals do you have for coordinating the B line with other transportation services within the city?
What was the first part again?
What proposals do you have for coordinating the B line?
I don't have any myself. It's what we're working on as a city to try to get the B-line system and the MTA and the other systems working together, and hopefully maybe working across city borders. There's no one proposal from us. That's one of the items where I look at our parking and transportation, the traffic engineers that work with the MTA or whatever to come up with the best solution to move them around. We're not efficient enough yet, but there's tremendous costs involved in any kind of connection between the systems. We will be making changes, I know, coming up in the next year or two with the town center coming in and the studies we're doing on the mobility plan and with the system itself, the B-line system.
Thank you. Mr. Draymond, should there be business licensing in Glendale? Please explain your answer.
No, there shouldn't be. One of the reasons that we have the occupancy that we do have is the lack of business licenses. I think that it encourages a greater flight of business out of the city. And I think if you compare Glendale to other cities that do have business licensing, you see that we fare much better in that regard. And as a representative of a significantly large business organization, I lead that group as its president, no, I don't know many businesses that would agree either that we should institute business licensing fees.
Thank you. Mr. Kergelian, do you support changing the city charter to allow a runoff election when candidates don't receive a majority vote? Why or why not?
Yes, I do. Primarily because it gives the candidates a better chance. If they don't succeed the first time around, then the runoffs would definitely be a good representation of the voice of the voters. The majority of the citizens vote, and then the one who gets the most votes eventually becomes the candidate who takes the seat. And definitely, yes, I would.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, how can redevelopment money best be used in Glendale?
Strengthening our future. That is the way that we would do it, is because we as homeowners and residents and renters in our community have given many years and support to our redevelopment and to our city itself. But redevelopment revenue should be helped to strengthen our community. Unfortunately, with a lot of the money we've been gaining in this city, we as residents see challenges that are hitting us, such as utility rates jumping, other fees jumping, looking at assessing fees for using our parks, looking at other fees. We need to look at how redevelopment funds will benefit the schools more, look at ways how we can work with our college, and look at ways on how we can work with the community and the homeowners. We have built, our forefathers and past council members have built a great foundation for us, and it's starting to crumble. And what's important is we have to strengthen redevelopment, keep the revenue flowing for us, because it'll strengthen our police, fire, and our parks. So it's important that when redevelopment funds do come in, we use it in a good way.
Thank you. Mr. Manukian, the cities of Glendale and Burbank currently share a number of projects. What other services or projects would you like to see them cooperate on?
I would like to see them cooperate on any project that could benefit the city. Currently, our street lights are maintained by the city of Burbank, and we have an agreement to use the Magnolia Power, a certain percentage for the Magnolia Power Plant. If there are other issues, such as the regional transit, as we were talking about earlier, the B-Line, and Burbank is about to implement or expand their local services for B-Line. I think there's an opportunity there to cooperate between the B-Line, the public transportation in Glendale, and the public transportation in Burbank to do a more regional public transportation system that could benefit both cities.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, what is your view on the work of the Glendale Commission on the Status of Women? Please explain your answer.
I think it is one of the smartest moves that the city has made. Many people don't know that of all of the crime statistics, especially Part 1 crime, for the past 15 years, all major crime statistics have come down more than 50%. But recently, in the last couple of years, we've had aggravated assault as one of the upticks. Even though we have a reduction, we had an increment in that particular statistic, primarily due to domestic abuse. Domestic abuse is a significant stain on our community. I don't think that we are doing quite enough to resolve that problem. And the problem extends further, because families that are unstable, families that suffer from domestic abuse, will impact the children and the educational success. We must absolutely address it, and the Commission on the Status of Women is beginning to open up the eyes of the community. I'm glad we have it.
Thank you. For our final round, each candidate will have 1 minute to speak to any question previously asked or to address an issue not covered in the questioning. And our final round will begin with Mr. Agajanian. Mr. Agajanian, your 1 minute statement, please.
The issue which I want to talk is solar or million solar roofs issue. SB 1 has passed in July of 2006, which offers to have solar system more be used in the state, that has been offered by Senator Murray of Los Angeles and Senator Campbell of Orange County, and it has been signed into the law last year in July of 2006. and where this city is falling behind. We have, of course, Glendale Community College, which is going to have solar system, but that's not enough. We have to do more if you want more cleaner environment, which I'm in favor of open space and clean air. I think we have to work hard on that issue, and we have to catch up. We have lots of catch up to do to offer incentives and help people to use solar system, which is more environmental friendly.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver, your 1-minute statement.
Well, I have a lot I could pick on, things that have been covered or not covered, but one that truly concerns me is having an elected or an appointed city treasurer. When Betty Evans retired some time ago, in between election times, the council had to appoint a city treasurer. We went out, put a report together, not a report, but a request for people to apply with very detailed knowledge of the banking system, because they're going to have to handle $500 million of investments for this city, your money. And we were very successful in getting Mr. Baruki, who's done a great job. Now, if you're going to elect somebody, you could end up getting a bunch of people together, have a popular person in the city get elected with no background. He's going to walk in the office. Staff's going to say, okay, you got $550 million here. How are you going to invest it? You have to have an experienced person.
Thank you. Mr. Draymond, your 1-minute statement, please.
The question that wasn't asked me or anyone else that I'd like to talk about has to do with Mountain Oaks, up in the north part of the city, the city's orphanage, we like to say. There's the story that we hear from council from time to time that Mountain Oaks can't be addressed because there isn't a proposal on paper. And I just think that that's a straw man issue. I believe that the owner of this property has been on the record since last summer as to what he wants to do with that property. The local residents have also been on the record, and so am I. I just believe that if Mountain Oaks is worth, if open space in general is worth having and protecting and saving, then Mountain Oaks is worth saving right now. I encourage the city to either purchase this property or to find a leadership role in finding an agency to purchase this property or to partner in its purchase.
Thank you. Mr. Kergalian, your 1-minute statement, please.
There was a question earlier about communities' involvement in government at large in general, different sections, different segments, different ethnic minorities getting involved or being encouraged to be involved. I would take it from the law enforcement perspective, and yes, we do have one of the best police department in the nation. We are one of the safest cities in the nation. That has been accomplished through the involvement and cooperation of the community, not only due to law and order personnel. One thing we need to do, though, is get more and more individuals in the community, more and more segments of this city to be actively participating in not only organizing neighborhood watch meetings, but also in building bridges with the police department. And obviously the police department has a lot to do in order to gain respect of the community.
Thank you. Mr. Kerkorian, your statement, please.
Thank you. There are two questions I'd like to address. One was the view ordinance, and that's an important issue to all of us. And we read the paper the other day to say there was no quorum. What kind of message does our council send us? In the 6 years I've been serving the Board of Education, not once have I missed a meeting, because I was not only balancing my time as a father, having 5 children, being the soccer coach and a Little League coach, and running a business and doing many things. An important issue like that, for our council not to have council, sends a clear message to us as residents. The second issue I want to address is Mountain Oaks. I'm firmly in agreeing that we have to protect Mountain Oaks. I am firmly committed that we have to make every opportunity to protect that open space. Two, when we address that, we need to analyze all the open space in our entire community, so we don't get held hostage by developers on item by item and pay 10 times the amount till we lose money for us. And all these mistakes are costing us as residents.
Thank you. Mr. Manukian, your 1-minute statement, please.
Thank you. I'd like to address the 16% vacancy rate. Today, Chief Economist Jack Kaiser said that vacancy rate's 14.9%. Lease rates are high, $2.53 a square foot, as high as Los Angeles. Unemployment is 4.9%. Average wages are $54,900, which is an increase of 25% from 2000 census. Our economy is strong and robust. I would like to address one individual said we're dealing with the same issues as 8 years ago. 8 years ago, we were dealing with Oakmont 5, airport, skateboard park at Montrose Park, speed bumps, the town center. We're not dealing with them today. Council act in a disrespectful manner. I have treated everyone with respect, regardless of my position as mayor or as council members, and I keep hearing that from the community. Montrose and South Glendale have not had representation. You can have coffee with Rafi in Montrose and South Glendale. Thank you very much.
Mr. Milano, your statement, please.
Thank you. I'll take some of my precious time to say that Mr. Rafi Manukin is correct. He's always been very decent and very appropriate in his manner in which he conducted himself. But last Tuesday, when many residents came to the city of Glendale, right here to this council chambers, if you look at the members on this dais, there were only 2 people present to look after the needs of that community. Mr. Weaver, who was here conducting as mayor the meeting, and I was here. Nobody else. So when people come to this dais to say that they propose and they support the issues of the hills or the views or the mountains, it's where it shows, and it shows right in here. I've been to Traffic Commission meetings. None of the gentlemen were here. I've been to Planning Commission meetings. None of the gentlemen were there. Meeting after meeting, year after year, I've been bringing up the issues that there's a lack of direct involvement by many people who come basically to an election only during election time to bring up the issues.
Thank you. Ms. Solis, your 1-minute statement, please.
Thank you. I'd like to see more accountability. We have El Tovar, we have the cost run over at the jail, and no accountability. I mean, LA has city controller Laura Chick. Who's our controller? Who's looking into all to ensure that our money is being spent efficiently? I'm concerned about the general fund transfer from Glendale Water and Power into the general fund. You know, when I started on the Water and Power Commission, it was about $14 million. It's almost doubled. In 5-6 years, that's scary, because we're balancing our budget, and that means that all the ratepayers are having their rates raised, and that's going to force a lot of small businesses out of Glendale, because next to their rent, their utility bill is the next highest bill they have to pay every month. So we need to be concerned about that. I'm also against mansionization. I believe that we do need to make some changes to our hillside ordinance. You know, we have a situation on Emerald Isle where you've got a 5-acre lot, 16,000 square foot proposed building. So there needs to be some compatibility issues addressed. Thank you.
We will now conclude with a 1-minute closing statement from each of the candidates, and the closing statements will be made in the order that the candidates appear on the ballot. Mr. Weaver, your closing statement, please.
Well, there's a lot of issues that have been discussed and talked about and haven't been talked about. All I know is I've sat up here for 10 years. I've done my very best to serve you, serve the community I was born and raised in. Lived here almost 68 years, other than when I was in the Navy. Registered civil engineer and a project manager for a career. I've never had any ambitions for running for higher office. I voted for and against my friends and my detractors on council. I've voted for what I think is best for you and me, and nobody else. I think my overall record shows that more often than not, I've done things that you, the public, think are right for the city. And I'd like to close by saying that I think you all ought to vote in this election. You ought to tell your neighbors and friends to vote, whether it's absentee ballot or otherwise. We don't need a 7% voter turnout. So in the election, I'm the first name on the ballot. Leave it to Weaver.
Thank you. Mr. Draymond, your closing statement, please.
2 years ago, in this chamber, I reminded you that together we share a common stake in this city, its future, and how we're to be represented, that local government is meant to be our most available form of representation for all the people of Glendale, and yet we've been discovering in this very room that local government has become increasingly remote, increasingly politicized, and increasingly dismissive of its own constituency, and I believe we can do better. Excuse me, in 2005, we missed an opportunity to win a seat on the City Council by the narrowest of margins, and I ask you to consider the good that you and I together could have accomplished for this city in the last 2 years for you and your families, your neighbors, and your quality of life had we succeeded. With all my heart, I ask you to give me this opportunity to help make local government work for all of us again. My name is John Draymond. I thank you for this time tonight, and I thank you for your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Kergalian.
A minute to express issues, a minute to answer questions usually is not enough, but thank you for this opportunity. I have expressed my views and my positions on the questions asked, and the rest is up to the citizens to judge. But at least each and every citizen who's watching this program, who has been here, who is here still, and who will be watching the reruns, will definitely know where I stand on issues. The issues that were raised here desperately need more and more discussions, and I'm all willing and open to listen to the community, to make my decisions based on what the community needs. However, I'm committed to improve the quality of life of all the residents while encouraging more public participation and engaging the community in the decision-making process. That would definitely need public involvement, transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. 18 years ago, we moved to Glendale from Connecticut and Michigan. This 18 years has built me upon a leader in this community, which I thank many of the community organizations which helped develop me into what I am today. A community leader, a father, a volunteer. You look at the track record, what I've done in this community, and it's built me upon the hard decisions for our community, for us. And serving on the Board of Education in the last 6 years has enabled me to understand the challenges we have with our children, to see what's happening in our schools. That's why I asked the nearly 30,000 children out there who have parents, we have an opportunity, since Sheldon Baker has served on our city council, to bring someone who knows our public schools, who knows our issues in our schools, but also has a business background, a family man that's committed to Boy Scouts and Kiwanis. Join Carl Raggio, Rick Reyes, Ginger Brenberg, and James Perkins, and a slew of others who are endorsing me. That's why I'm proud to say the Glendale News Press has said it's time for a change, to bring Greg Krikorian. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manoukian, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and those attending and watching tonight for this forum. Over the past 8 years, we have purchased over 500 acres of open space, more than any other time in the history of Glendale. We have acquired, constructed, and renovated over 10 parks and mini parks, 4 Habitat for Humanity affordable housing projects and one in progress, and a number of other affordable and senior housing projects. We've increased the police force by 40 additional police officers. We've implemented the Glendale Fire Paramedic Program, assisted neighborhood business districts such as Montrose, Kenneth Village, Spar Heights, Adams Square, and Downtown Merchants, and we are starting construction on a new library in Adams Square. I have started a unique outreach program with my sidewalk office hours, also known as Coffee with Rafi, where community members can approach me with their concerns in the Montrose Market, Brand Market, and in Adams Square as well. I would like to finish with a quote from Tip O'Neill, the former Speaker of the House, who was writing about term limits and how term limits would rob the nation of its best people in time of need. I ask for your support and your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, your closing statement, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I understand that the residents of Glendale want to restore a responsive government. We want the character of our neighborhoods respected. We want greater parkland and green open spaces. We want smart urban planning and controlled growth. We want smooth running traffic. We want a city council that is respectful of the citizens' wishes. We all long for the government we deserve, yet We have seen how the incumbents and our requests have been denied. When you're at the voting booth, you will have the time to think about who among us has the ability and the determination to take your wishes and carry them through to fruition. You had many years to see for yourselves my determination at this very council chambers hundreds of times. My name is Herbert Molano. Tonight I ask for one of your 2 votes so that I can take our common vision and carry it through. I thank you for listening, and I thank you for your vote.
Thank you. Ms. Solis, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. I believe that our potential to develop a cohesive community has been lost in an attempt to pander to certain groups. I believe that stewardship is about being of service to the community, not being served. Glendale's legacy is at stake. We need to vote. We are not voting in this community. We are just ignoring this unbelievable opportunity to make a change. You have an opportunity to change this city. I'm against mansionization. I'm for systematic change, setting goals and objectives, long range, short range, accountability, transparency. Integrity is key. We are in this together. Vote for Lenore on April 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Agajanian, your statement, please.
Serving Glendale should be an honor, not a career. Our leaders should reach out to the community because the best ideas often come from Glendale's creative residents. The News Press ranked me number 2 in its list of Glendale's 103 most influential people for my community work. The real strength of Glendale is the ideas and energy of its residents. When elected, I will ensure Glendale has safe and secure neighborhood. I will protect hillside and views, focus on improving our environment, parks, traffic, housing, and bringing good jobs to Glendale. Lead a more caring city government that truly listens to its residents. Pledge to serve no more than 8 years. 8 years should be enough to implement one's goals and ideas. I ask for your vote, Reja Gajanian. Even though my last name starts with the first letter of the alphabet, I am the last name of the list of candidates. And my phone number is 249-9999, and the website is Glendale 2007. And thank you.
Thank you. This concludes tonight's League of Women Voters Candidates Forum. Our sincere thanks to the candidates for participating and to the City of Glendale and Charter Communications for making this forum possible. Remember that the forum will be repeated at various times between now and Election Day on Glendale TV. And remember, the most important thing you can do is to actually show up and vote on Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very well done.